Q1057, Albany's rock station. I'm Steve King, and excited to be joined by Jon Anderson, best known as the lead singer, main lyricist for Yes, but he's also worked with just hundreds of other musicians. He's had an incredible solo career. Yes, of course, a few years ago, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The band got together for a short period of time, and who knows, maybe there's another reunion in the future for Yes. Right now, Jon Anderson, though, has a new album called 1,000 Hands, Chapter 1, and a bunch of other projects he's working on. And a pleasure now to talk to Mr. Jon Anderson.
Mr. Steve, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Very, very good. You know, Albany, New York. I think I've just been there.
Is that right? Are you around the corner from us?
Yeah. I love the Egg.
The Egg is a beautiful place and an amazing place to play, isn't it?
It's just absolutely magnificent. You know, it's one of the great places in America. And I always loved going to Albany. There's a couple of restaurants that I always go to at the bottom of the street where the Hilton is. You know, I think it's the Hilton. Mm-hmm. And old-time Italian. Beautiful place, Albany.
Well, I couldn't think of a better place for someone like you with your voice and your repertoire of music to play than someplace like the Egg, someplace like Albany here.
Yeah, I did a solo show there. I remember. It was really special. Just me and the guitar and tell a few stories, sing a few songs, you know. Always good.
Yes. So I have to ask you right off the bat, I've heard a rumor that the album 1,000 Hands Chapter 1 is based on a bunch of tapes that you found in your garage. Is that right?
Yeah, well, 30 years ago, I was recording some songs with a friend of mine, Brian Chatton, who was in my original band in the 60s called The Warriors, and he's a keyboard player, and we wrote some really good songs together. And then a couple of friends come up there in Big Bear I had a little 16-track studio in an A-frame, and I went skiing every day, which is a lot of fun. And then I got too high on dope, which you do when you're up in the mountains.
Of course.
And then we never quite got the album finished. And, you know, I went on tour, and Brian went on tour with B.B. King, who was a keyboard player for his band. And I was on tour with Kitaro, a Japanese composer, and then I went on tour with Yes. Life took over, and we never got the album finished. And I put the tapes in my garage for 28 years.
Wow. And they were still okay after all those years. They could still be used, obviously.
Well, it's a miracle because this friend of mine, producer called Michael Franklin, who lives in Orlando, called me up and said, "Have you still got the tapes?" And I said, "Yeah, they're in the garage." He said, "Well, send them to me because what we have to do is bake them in a big oven. Tapes fall apart if you try to play them. So you bake them, and then you can play them once, maybe twice, but once, and it's got to go straight to computer. And all those tracks were saved, and the album became what it was, sounding really good. And Michael Franklin decided to put Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull on a track, and I said, "Michael, that's exactly what I want to do, is put a lot of musicians on the tracks, because the songs are pretty good, but you had a very talented player like Chick Corea and Billy Cobham and Jean-Luc Ponty and Tower Power. And all of a sudden, all these musicians came on the record and made it better and better and better and better. And I'm in heaven now. It's a miracle."
How much of the album, when they sent you the digital recordings off the original tapes, how much of the songs, the album, did you actually remember from 28 years ago? All of it or bits and pieces?
All of it. It all came rushing back to me, and all the vocals are from the 90s, and it surprised me right away that if there was something wrong with a lyric wasn't really good, a line, I could just re-sing it, and my voice has sounded the same as it was 30 years ago. It's kind of bizarre.
You know, that was what I was going to ask you about. I was thinking how much of that had been overdubbed, how much did you have now, because your voice today still sounds like the Jon Anderson from the early days of Yes. It's pretty amazing. I don't know what your vocal routine is, if you drink a lot of lemon tea or whatever, but it's incredible how your voice is the same.
Well, I'm just lucky. I'm blessed to be alive, and I have a beautiful wife. I have some great grandchildren. My children, I love very much, and grandchildren. And I'm going musically, I'm growing every day and getting better every day at my musical world. And the last 3 or 4 months, I've been sort of in my studio, finishing a lot of projects that have been sitting around. So I really feel very grateful for what I do.
So in this, pandemic world where everybody seems to be quarantining, I've talked to several musicians and artists that have talked about, in a weird way, it's actually been a good way for them to kind of pause for a minute and, like you said, finish projects. Have you found that to be true for you as well?
Yeah, and I had a lot of projects I wanted to finish, and the more I finish something, I'll do a new thing, and then finish this thing from 1982. I did a concerto for orchestra in 1982 in south of France, and I have all the MIDI files here, so I did a bit of different sounds, like very sonic sounds of the 21st century, and now I'm going to release that for Christmas, as a Christmas present to all my fans, And my good friend in Ireland, the video guy who does all my songs, he's doing a beautiful project of videoizing, so people will be able to have it's a lot of music. Well, it's not a lot. It's about 20 minutes of music, but at least it's for free.
Well, it's beautiful music, and I'll tell you, the 1,000 Hands Chapter 1, it has to be one of the happiest albums I've probably ever listened to. There's like no dark song on the album. It's all very upbeat and very joyful.
Yeah, well, that's where I was 30 years ago, and I'm still there. I'm still
Good
there.
for you.
Happy and grateful for everything, and so in love with my wife and my kids and the world. I mean, what I see in the world is what I see, and I just see extraordinary Earth Mother. We just got to be better gardeners of Mother Earth, because that's why we're here, is to look after Mother Earth, and then she'll look after us. It's the way it works.
It's a beautiful sentiment. I like that.
That's true.
I like that.
Yeah.
I've heard you talk in other interviews about your wife being a very big muse in everything artistically that you do. Did she contribute to this album in that way?
Oh, yeah. She's what you would call executive producer. And she sings on the song I Found Myself When I Found You, which is about her. And so she sings the same story to me. She sings that she found herself when she found me, which is kind of cute.
I've read in another interview that you actually meditated and saw her in your meditations before you ever met her. Is that right?
Yeah, very freaky, because for about 3 months I kept seeing this lovely girl jump up and wave at me, and then she walked in my studio room in my house I was renting in Hollywood. I was making a record, and she came in because she worked for Ron Howard, and a friend of mine at BMI got us together, and I could hardly speak to her. In my mind, I'm thinking, I love you. We're going to get married. You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. You're going to be with me for the rest of my life. How are you? And I just shook her hand. But that's what I was thinking in my head. But I couldn't say anything,
You were gobsmacked just sitting there looking at her, right?
Absolutely. And she thought I was dumb.
Well, I have to tell you, John, it is a pleasure talking to you. I love your music. I've always loved your voice. I didn't know about Yes until I heard Owner of a Lonely Heart was the first thing. And then once I dove into the catalog, I realized, what a true musical genius you are. So I appreciate everything that you've given to the world, and it continues to give.
Thank you, Steve King.
Yes.
I appreciate what you just said. Thank you.
It is a pleasure talking to you. You have a great rest of the day, and we can't wait to hear more music from you.
I wish you well. Take care.